Once again, the Nashville Fairgrounds is in the headlines for the possible renovation of the track to bring NASCAR in town. And with it is also the opposition. And I think that, honestly, this is a giant fight between racing fans and disinformation, and a bunch of corporate tomfoolery. So let's get into what was said and what is wrong with what was against the fairgrounds. First off, like I said, there were public statements given from both sides and rallies from both sides as well. There seemed to be noticeably more red shirts in support of the fairgrounds, but official counts had it more towards the middle. But it seemed like the rally to keep the fairgrounds and renovate it was much more enforced and pushed than the one against it. And there were plenty of heavy hitters there as well. Marcus Smith was at the track, Bubba Wallace was there, Kurt Busch, Freddie Kraft. There were plenty of big NASCAR names that came out in support of the track, and you could see based on the crowd just how big it all looked. And I gotta say that it honestly is a good push against some of the outright, I will say, lies against SMI and the fairgrounds. I'm not saying SMI and Marcus Smith are perfect, but it does seem like there's embellishment by those against the track because they know they're on the losing end of an argument. They're looking more and more incompetent and incoherent. They held their rally at the Geodis Park, which is the soccer stadium next to the NASCAR track. So you can see already where their alliances and allegiances are at. And I want you to remember that Geodis sponsor name. I want you to remember that for later in the video because it plays a crucial part in why people oppose this, and I think why it is invalid as a movement. So that's probably the biggest hurdle. That next door, the soccer stadium, because it was now built there first before the renovations could be made, and they're trying really to push the racetrack more and more out from how it sounds. It's funny, though, that those against NASCAR coming to town are always bringing up noise, but never talking about the soccer stadium. See, there's neighborhoods right there, right next to the soccer stadium. And yes, I don't think that soccer fans are exactly as loud as NASCAR will be on a regular basis, but if you don't believe that soccer fans can be as rabid and loud as a NASCAR track when a game is on the line late at night, I have oceanfront property to sell you in Illinois, because I'm going to be completely honest with you, they can be some of the best and loudest fans in all of sports. And again, opponents will say that there will be more race weekends, there's no noise mitigation that they will like, and that it's unfair to Nashville taxpayers. All of those could be real concerns if it wasn't for the fact that I think that real valid reasons have been given for those complaints to be amended, or they are really complaining about something to drop in the bucket compared to stuff that Nashville is already in the market for. Starting out, Bristol has routinely said that they're going to stick to the agreed weekends, whatever it may be. More than likely 10 race weekends, so NASCAR would be one of 10 with 9 local weekends on top of it, and maybe a regional local weekend as one of those 9, instead of 10 weekends plus NASCAR. It would mean that the track would have just as many race weekends as they have now, and they wouldn't impose more on the community, which is something they say again and again, but it seems like it goes on deaf ears or willfully deaf ears. Bristol has also shown a plan after plan for noise mitigation and how different sound walls, sound barriers, and mufflers will get the sound down to a reasonable level. Listen, I lived near a racetrack for most of my life at the Rockford Speedway, and I can tell you, if you move there, it's part of life. And we'll get to that in a moment. If you move near a racetrack, it's going to be part of your life that it's going to be loud. But again and again, they keep acting like this has never been talked about. Again, actions will speak louder than words, but I think that at the same time, those words right now from the opposition are their actions. There's nothing they're giving as a helpful way to go or as something that they can do. They're instead just complaining about the same thing with solutions always given and never accepting it as good enough. It's clear they're biased against the track, and at this point, honestly, who cares what I think? But the other part of this that I think is the most absurd is complaining about taxpayer dollars. The fact that anywhere from 20 to maybe 50 million could go towards it. That is a ton, I agree. But cry me a river. Nashville is the same city that's also going to be putting over $1 billion of public funds into the Titans' next stadium. And yes, you can say, well, it'll get them the Super Bowl, it'll give back. Except that cities have to pay an NFL fee to get the Super Bowl. So no matter what, this is going to lose them money. And studies have shown that new state-of-the-art NFL stadiums usually are a net negative to the community, much more than this racetrack will be, as the NFL and in a lot of ways NFL teams probably won't give back in the ways that Bristol has talked about being part of the agreement. But again, it seems like it falls on deaf ears because of a bias. Now, I mentioned it a moment ago, but you move next to a track. Preserve the history instead of bitching about the fact that you move next to a racetrack. That was your bad decision you made. You made it with bad information or bad thinking, and that's on you. Take responsibility for your actions instead of trying to take stuff away, including history away from a city. But the biggest hurdle and point I want to go against right now when it comes to the opposition is honestly the face of the opposition. The former Fair Board member, Jason Bergeron, who made an appearance and led on some pretty bad points in his rant, if I have to say.
Biggest shame of all this, and that's Bristol and their PR team's tactics and what it says about them. Over the last 5 years, Bristol's lobbyists and astroturfers have threatened and harassed area residents with stunts as dumb as stationing strange people in residents' yards. And of course, we saw the recent story of a prominent Bristol surrogate threatening a mayoral candidate. If Bristol will do stuff like that now, what will they do if this half-baked deal gets rammed through? For the answer to this, look at the top, at Bristol's millionaire owner, Marcus Smith. In 2001, after a Fair Board meeting, one of Marcus's buddies tweeted that when NASCAR returned, he hoped the noise would make a local woman cry out in agony and that her dog would go to the bathroom on the floor. And Marcus Smith liked that tweet because I guess he thought it was funny. You think that's funny, Jerry? That's what Bristol thinks of Nashvillians, that residents who live here don't matter, and at the end of the day, Bristol will be able to laugh all the way to the bank. On the other side of this deal is Mayor John Cooper, who told me to my face on October 8th, 2021, that it, quote, it didn't matter if the affordable housing and childcare center being built at the fairgrounds fails as a result of this massive speedway expansion. Think about that. A mayor saying affordable housing doesn't matter. That is the dark heart at the center of this morally bankrupt and financially reckless proposal. My question to all the Metro Council members here tonight is, who are you going to side with? Are you going to side with Bristol's millionaire owner and millionaire lobbyists like James Weaver and all their dirty money in a deal built upon simple greed? Or are you going to side with Nashvillians who overwhelmingly are opposed to this deal? And are you going to send this deal back to the drawing board to finally demand a deal with real financial protections and real community protections? It's doable. I've been saying for 5 years, Bristol and the mayor's office should just ignore that because it's about greed. I implore you, Metro Council members, stand with Nashville.
The first point I want to make is that he seems overly emotional. He's yelling, he's giving personal insults, he's going after people, but not showing anything concrete when it comes to evidence against this. Plus, he somehow brought up a tweet from, let me check, 2001?
What?
But my big question is, where's the proof, Jason? Where's the proof to your claims? They might be valid claims. They might be really realistic. But when all you bring is some pieces of paper with notes of yours instead of actual valid evidence, why is anyone going to take seriously what you're saying? Plus, I want to ask with the whole dog crapping in the apartment tweet or whatever it was, what was the context for that tweet? Because I know that there's a certain someone that's a Karen in Nashville who's become a meme right now for some of her dumb points before, who brought up a dog. And there's been a lot of jokes made at her expense and the 5 F1 tracks she claims to be in Nashville, in the Nashville area. Also, it's funny that he always brings up affordable housing, but also those that are aligned with him and himself at different points have brought up property values. I really don't think that high property values, aka high prices to buy houses in the area in good areas, are also going to be super affordable as well. It's an oxymoron, and it's funny that no one has really called him on this yet. But honestly, the biggest point against Jason and what he says is greed or morally bankrupt is that it's really funny coming from a corporate show like him. Remember earlier how I talked about Giannis and said you need to remember that name, that sponsor of the stadium and where they held the rally, which was in an area sponsored by them? Well, it's funny because Jason Bergeron is employed by them. He's employed by them, the sponsor of the soccer stadium, and it's pretty obvious why he has so many anti-track sentiments. It immediately looked like political theater before, but when he resigned because of being on this company, well, it all started to make sense. He is a corporate mouthpiece, and it devalues any points he or those in his movement make because it's pretty clear he's following the money. Now, there are actual valid points that should be made that Bristol needs to address. The biggest is infrastructure and parking. Honestly, even with 10,000 people there or 15,000 for an SRX race or just 1,000 for local racing, it is difficult to get in and out of the track near race time. And that needs to be addressed if NASCAR and Bristol is really going to put 30 to 40,000 total seats in the renovations. So that's a real concern, and that's something that those against the renovation of the Speedway can talk about, but instead they want to go for the emotional answers, yell about it, and put their own bias in. It just shows the opposition's BS, and it needs to be addressed in the August 1st meeting that will be addressing the fairgrounds renovation. But with that, I want to ask you, what do you think of the Nashville Fairgrounds? Do you want it renovated? Do you think this is too much of a hassle? Or should you just stay at the Nashville Super Speedway? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great NASCAR and racing content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And be sure to watch the NASCAR Weekly Podcast tonight on Black Flags Matters channel. It's his birthday. Come on, you got to be there. So, until then, have a good one.